Day, everybody. Today we are going to be doing a full essay example. So we're going to just go through all the key points of the full essay. Just how we've gone through how to do an introduction, we've gone to how to write a paragraph, we've gone to how to write a conclusion. So now we're just going to see how to bring all of those elements together to create a full essay. So the last time we did the introduction. So now let's go to paragraph one. So what you need to do with paragraph one is you basically need to give the background to the essay. So you need to tell us. Remember, we're speaking about his election promises. So let's speak about how he came to power through the US election. So you'll see my first sentence, I speak about how he was elected 1932. He promises the New Deal. And now we're going to say, what is his aims there? How is he going to create? He's got this New Deal, and this is what he's aiming to do with this New Deal. So he aims to get people back to work, jobs brings income, increased demand for goods, revive the economy, more government spending, numerous jobs created through agencies, and then just explaining that the New Deal was a step back from the laissez-faire capitalism of Hoover, where the government just was hands off with the economy, and we saw how that ended. So this is like taking the complete opposite approach, going full on deep dive into bringing the government taking an active role in managing the economy. We're focusing on three key areas: relief, recovery, and reform. So that already tells us, that last line there, that the next paragraph is going to be about the relief, recovery, and reform. So that is what I mean when I speak about linking to the next paragraph. So there you can see I start with the relief agencies, and then I mention a few relief agencies. So I mentioned two here. Federal Emergency Relief Administration, FERA, which provides food aid, while the Civil Works Administration, CWA, creates jobs for thousands, including repairing infrastructure and employing artists to boost morale. So I explain these two organizations, and then I give a few examples. So here I've said that's what that does. Then I speak about the recovery, such as the Agricultural Adjustment Act and how it helps people. So now I'm saying it's reducing overproduction, ensuring better prices. You can go a little bit more into detail about that, but I kept it short and sweet. But basically, you could say that the government basically paid the farmers to produce less and things like that. So I simplified it quite a lot there. Then you've got the National Industrial Recovery Act, NRA, which aim to stabilize industry and promote cooperation among businesses and workers. So I've mentioned all these different alphabet agencies, and then I've explained what they've done to help the so-called forgotten man. Then when we go to paragraph three, we're going to speak about the reforms. Now, sometimes I'll put relief, recovery, and reforms all together, but just so that it doesn't overwhelm the marker, like one long paragraph, it sometimes does help to just split it up a bit. So, the Emergency Banking Relief Act, which was one of the first acts that Roosevelt put in place when he came to power, where he completely closed all banks and only opened the ones that were stable. National Labor Relations Board, which protectors workers like to unionize. Now, if you remember back to the weaknesses in the economy, you will remember that workers were not allowed to have unions, which meant that their wages were very low, and this was one of the reasons that contributed to the Great Depression. Because when the stock market crashed, everyone just they couldn't afford anything. Okay. Then you've got the Social Security Act, which provides support for the unemployed and the elderly. So that shows how he targeted the forgotten in his policies. And then you'll see how I finish up by saying, however, some of these policies fell woefully short on reaching certain groups of people. So that is me linking back to the question. So remember, I told you there's two ways to link. You can either link to the question or you can link to the next paragraph. So this one is linking to the question, which was that his New Deal was supposed to deal with the forgotten people. And then in the first two paragraphs, I do explain how he's trying to help the forgotten people with food aid, with creating jobs, employing artists, to help the struggling farmers, to stabilize industry for the workers, to make sure that the banks are going to protect people and they're not going to have to run to the bank, withdraw all their money, and then run away. Protecting the workers so that they can join a union, supporting the unemployed, supporting the elderly. But now I'm going to bring in a contrasting idea. I'm going to bring in the criticism where his New Deal did not help the forgotten. So here we're going to say, though the New Deal offered support to many Americans and helped establish a foundation for economic stability in the future, not everyone benefited equally. So that's my point, and it's going to say that this paragraph is going to tell me all of the people that did not benefit from the New Deal. So we've got Black Americans, women, migrant workers. And then I'm going to give an example. Black workers in the South face barriers in accessing New Deal programs due to local discrimination. Women were excluded by the CCC entirely. So these jobs were created, but women weren't even allowed to apply for them. And then key reforms like the NRA were struck down by the Supreme Court. So even though that he implements these alphabet agencies to help people, over time the Supreme Court just says that's unconstitutional, that's unconstitutional, that's unconstitutional. And then the help is actually limited because it's only in place for like 2 years or something, and then it's struck down. Thus, the New Deal succeeded in stabilizing the economy and provided critical relief. It ultimately fell short of reaching all Americans. Right? So now we're going to go here to our conclusion. We start with our concluding statement, which is, as can be seen above, President Roosevelt tried to uphold his promise of a New Deal for the forgotten man by introducing programs that provided relief, recovery, and reform. Programs like the CCC, PWA, and SSA delivered benefits to millions, offering employment and financial security in a time of crisis. However, some groups, including women, African Americans, and migrant workers, did not fully benefit from these policies, proving that the New Deal did not reach everyone. So that last line there is tying it back to the it's tying it back to the question, which was he promised a new deal for the forgotten man. Do you agree that he fulfilled his promise? So I'm actually saying the New Deal did not reach everyone. So it's proving that disagree that I said in the beginning. If you did want to say agree, what you could do with paragraph 4 is you could explain how even though black workers were faced barriers in accessing the New Deal programs, it doesn't mean that it wasn't there for him. So the barriers that they faced was local. It wasn't coming from government. It was local racists that were stopping them from doing things. That could be a way to kind of address that criticism. With the woman criticism, you could maybe speak about how even though they didn't benefit from the CCC, they did benefit from things like the Social Security Act, etc. And then even though those acts were struck down by the Supreme Court, you could mention things like in the time that they were in place, they did help people. So he did fulfill his promise, even though it didn't have like a lasting effect. That's if you wanted to argue for agree. But let's not make things complicated. Let's end it there. So the next time I see you, we'll go over some tips and tricks for writing an essay. Now, this you can use no matter what the essay is. It's not specifically tied to a New Deal essay. It could be a 5-year plan essay. It could even be a Nazi essay that you have in the next paper. It could also be any kind of essay. You can use these tricks to do anything. So I'll see you next time.